welcome to the informal stakeholder meeting for the petition for rulemaking on extensions of time for construction of certain reservoirs. And immediately following this stakeholder meeting, we're going to have our water rights advisory work group meeting. So this meeting is being broadcast, but we also have people here live. So I'm Ross Henderson, and we have a whole bunch of staff here, and we'll introduce everybody at the water rights advisory work group meeting, but I think I'm the only one that's talking at this one, so I will just save those introductions for later. The petition was filed by the City of Wichita Falls to amend 30 TAC 295.159. This is, that petition was 2019-098-PET-NR under the Commission's records. That was received on February 5th of this year. The 295.159 specifies notice for applications for extensions of time to commence or complete construction of certain reservoirs, of reservoirs. And this amendment would make an exception for reservoirs with 50,000 acre feet or more of storage by adding a new subsection C. The language that was proposed by the petitioner is on the screen, and we have copies of it available. So that's what we're starting out with. The commission approved the rulemaking for the petition on March 27th agenda and requested stakeholder input prior to proposal. So we're throwing out the petition as the starting point, the petition language as the starting point, and we're going to be taking comments for 2 weeks. I think the deadline is June 27th, and the timeline for the rulemaking is backup's going to be around October. Backup for agenda is going to be around October, with an October proposed agenda we're shooting for, and then we have to complete the rulemaking within 6 months of the agenda. So a fall and spring timeline for fall for proposal and spring for adoption. So at that, I am going to. If anyone has any comments here live, we're going to take those, but we'll also be taking comments. You can send them to my email address, which are on the stakeholder meeting agenda. My email's at the bottom there. But if anyone would like to make comments now, you can go ahead and step up here, or I could bring you a microphone, whichever you prefer.
Good morning. My name is Ivan Langford, General Manager of Gulf Coast Water Authority, and we support the petition for this change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. Anyone else?
My name is Sara Thornton. I'm legal counsel representing City of Wichita Falls, who submitted this petition. This petition would allow the City of Wichita Falls to not have to deal with the burden of issuing notice on multiple occasions just because of the time lag between water rights permitting and federal permitting. So City of Wichita Falls fully supports this petition and thinks it will not only provide relief to the City of Wichita Falls, but other entities that have water supply reservoirs as a recommended water management strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I forgot to mention, we will be considering all the comments that we received, but this is not a formal comment period. We're not going to be responding to the comments. Anyone else like to comment? So after the proposal, there'll be a public meeting, and there'll be a formal comment period then in which we will respond to those comments. But we're not going to be responding to these comments on the informal stakeholder prior to proposal. Okay, if anyone has any comments, to do so now. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and close up this meeting and open up the Water Rights Advisory Work Group meeting. Anyone else? Okay, thank y'all. We're gonna close the informal stakeholder meeting on the rulemaking petition, and I'm gonna turn things over to Kim Negrin.
Good morning, I'm Kim Nygren, Director for the Water Availability Division. And I'm gonna let staff around the table introduce themselves really quickly. I think most of y'all are familiar with the folks sitting here, but for anyone new who's joining us out through the webcast, we just wanna make sure that we introduce folks and y'all are familiar with the faces here.
I'm Robin Smith. I'm with the Environmental Law Division.
Amy Sedemeyer, Section Manager for Water Rates Permitting and Availability.
Ross Henderson, again, I'm a technical specialist for the division.
Kathy Alexander, Technical Specialist for the Water Availability Division.
And I'm Kelly Mills, the Assistant Director for Water Availability Division.
Okay, and then what we will normally do at this time is we'll introduce some of our new staff. That's usually a placeholder we have. The new staff that I had to introduce today is out traveling. She's our new Water Master Section Manager. Amy moved from Water Master Section Manager to Permitting Section Manager just before the Christmas holiday. And so Lori Garris has taken her place. And what she is doing right now is she's out doing Water Master evaluations for the basins that don't have a Water Master that we evaluate on a 5-year cycle. So hopefully we'll have her back in the office. She's spent quite a bit of time out in the field, getting to know the water masters, the water master deputies and their staff, and actually doing a lot of tours of the field, getting out with folks and seeing what it is that those water masters are doing out in those areas, and making sure she's familiar with things on the ground. So hopefully at our next meeting she'll be here and not out in the field, and we'll get to introduce those of you that have not met her then. She's got the Water Master update later in the agenda, and I'll give a quick update on what we have going on in those programs. So I will take the opportunity to introduce, we have one more newer face, temporary face with us. We've got an intern with us for the summer, Kagan Baldry, which for those of you on webcast, you won't be able to see him, but he's here in the office, and he's been working with Kathy on some research related to water use patterns. So we're anxious to see what comes out of those efforts. Next item on the agenda is just a recap of the 86th legislative session. We had several bills that we watched. I mean, between groundwater and surface water, I think we ended up 70 some odd bills we were keeping an eye on over the legislative session, and several of the ones we looked at did go on to the governor for signature. There's 3, though, at this point that we're looking at having more significant implementation. And by more significant implementation, I'm meaning that we're doing some sort of rulemaking and changes to our processes and procedures and those kinds of things. Or in the case of one of the bills, we'll be doing a lot of other types of work. So to just run through the 3 that we feel like are bigger impact for our programs, House Bill 720, that relates to aquifer storage and recovery and aquifer recharge. We're in the process right now of putting together a timeline for rulemaking to adopt rules to implement that legislation, and then thinking about other tools and things that we may need to tweak to accommodate some of those changes. The second bill that we'll be working on is House Bill 723, and that's the bill that directs TCEQ to update the data sets associated with the water availability models for the Brazos, Neches, Red, and Rio Grande River basins. And we are, again, putting together timelines right now for those. What we anticipate doing before, we're anticipating, of course, that work will be contracted out. And that process should start late summer, early fall. at the latest, I think, but we still are putting together approximate timelines. But what we're thinking about doing in advance of sending out putting that competitive bid out there is to have an informal stakeholder meeting to talk about what we really see those updates looking like and requiring. That way, anybody who has an interest in that work can come and hear sort of the same thing, what we're looking for and what we're expecting, and what we'll be reviewing when we get in those bids. And then the last bill we're looking at implementation for is House Bill 1964, and under that bill, certain water right amendments will not require a technical review notice or be subject to a contested case hearing. So that will certainly require rulemaking for us. And we're also looking at, since that will streamline permitting for those types of amendments, how we can develop a streamlined permitting application so that, you know, you've got a start to finish very streamlined process there. Streamlined on our end, but also streamlined on the applicant's end as well. So as we get more information about those timelines, things like that, we always announce rulemakings through our email distribution and any meetings associated with those. But if we're having informal stakeholder meetings in advance or something of that nature, we'll use that way of communicating to get the information out as well. We often try to pair them with water rights advisory work groups, just so that people can be here for more than one purpose. I hope that's helpful for everyone. Between now and communication on those bills and implementation, if you've got any questions or got any thoughts you want to share, we certainly welcome that you do so. You can email me, you can call me, and you can certainly call Amy or Ross or Kathy or Kelly as well, and we're happy to chat with you about thoughts. I don't have any more of our thoughts kind of solidified right now to share, but we're happy to kind of listen to what y'all see being issues or things you would expect would be a part of the process. With that, I will move on from the 86th session, and I'm going to hand things off to Amy to give y'all an update on water rights permitting.
Good morning again. Just a quick update on some of our numbers. These are all as of the end of May. So at the end of May, we had a total of 160 applications pending in-house. Over the last year, we've received 94 applications, with 75 of those coming in since September 1. We currently have 37 applications in administrative review and 123 that are admin complete as of the end of May. In the last year, we've also processed 131 applications, so 105 of those were issued. The rest were either denied, withdrawn, or returned. One of the other big projects going on in the section right now is all of our 5-year non-water rights submittals for water conservation plans and drought contingency plans were due in May. To date, we've received a little over half of what we expected to see, and so our staff's working through reviewing those and reaching out to the entities that have submitted to make sure we have everything we need, and then reaching out to those that we haven't seen anything from yet. So I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Okay. Next, I'm going to hand things off to Kathy to talk about a new project we have going, and I'll let her cover A to Z with that. But we've got some strong support from the executive office, and so we're really excited about what this will do, not only for us, but also folks on the outside as well.
Right. Good morning, y'all. So we're really excited about development of a water rights viewer, and its purpose is to allow both staff and y'all to be able to access information on water rights either by a spatial query or water rights attributes, like the type of authorization, how many IBT permits are there, how many reuse permits, and We've tried to develop this based on the kind of questions that we routinely get from y'all and the types of data that you're looking for. You know, who's upstream or downstream? What is authorized under the permit? So that's kind of the high-level scope of that. And also, I just want to mention, as we move through this process, certainly any input that you have or any issues that you identify, please let us know. So phase one, which will be available at the end of this fiscal year, so September 1st, this will be modeled kind of off of our water operations model we have for our water master areas. So there'll be just general base maps, the basins, the topo maps, satellite imagery, counties, regional planning areas, groundwater conservation districts, and management areas. And the thing that I'm really, really excited about is because of new technology, we were able to scan in all of the final determinations for all of the watersheds. So you can click on a watershed, and it will give you a PDF version of that is searchable. So we're super excited about that piece. That phase one will also have all the water rights points, so you can click on a point and it'll highlight all of the authorized diversion, discharge, reservoir points associated with that water right. And it will also pop up a PDF copy of the water right permit. So you'll be able to see those types of things. It'll also give you current ownership and last 10 years water use for that water right. We'll also have USGS gauges on there, and each USGS gauge for gauges where we have adopted environmental flow standards, you'll be able to click on a gauge and it will give you a PDF table of what the standards are. So that's phase one. Phase two, we're going to do some more enhanced linkages, and that'll get to those things that I was talking about earlier, like IBTs and reuse. And that'll be, as a result, we're doing a current project right now that's QA/QCing all of the water rights data in our database and adding new data to take advantage of enhanced functionality that we've developed. And we've kind of pushed this to phase two because we're trying to not impact, you know, water rights permitting timeframes that Amy had talked about, because we're making a lot of progress in that area. So in phase two, we'll have, you know, water quality discharge points, authorizations like IBT, you know, show me water rights with alternate sources, reuse, or bed and banks authorization, or water rights that have different types of special conditions, and it'll highlight it on the map. We're also, like our water operations model, where data is available, we're going to add the stream flow forecasting information to the USGS gauges where it's available. It's not necessarily available in all parts of the state, but every place it's available, we'll be adding that also into the viewer. And that rollout is anticipated to be January 1st of 2020. So if y'all have any questions or comments, let me know.
And just keep in mind, as we get that online, we're working really, really hard to make sure that the product we put out there works. The functionality is there. When we get data that's displayed beginning in both September and January, we have a large effort to make sure that data is QA/QC'd. But if you find an error or what you think is an error, please let us know. We have 7,000 water rights that we'll be looking through, and I'd like to think that it will be all perfect at the end of the day with the checks and balances we have, but that is a lot of perfection. And so if you do find something, just reach out to us, because we want to make sure we get anything that maybe isn't quite right fixed. Next, I've got Ross on our agenda to give us an update on the Desal rulemaking.
Thank you. We have another rulemaking in-house currently, the Desal rulemaking, as Kim mentioned. This was based on House Bill 2031 from the 84th legislative session, which enacted some rules relating to discharge and diversion points. permits, expedited permits for desalination permits. And part of the statute or the bill said that that the GLO and the Parks and Wildlife Department had to develop zones that are appropriate for diversion point and discharge within the Gulf, and then eventually the TCEQ was also required to do a rulemaking to implement those zones, and that's what this rulemaking is. We received the report. I forgot to write that down, but we received the report recently, and so we have the zones that were developed, and this rulemaking just amends our rules to incorporate those zones as best we can. We are looking at November for the proposal and adoption in the spring, 6 months, within 6 months in the spring. And there'll be, again, a public meeting and comment period after the proposal. That's all I have on that. If you want the rule project number is 2019-102-295-OW. Thank you.
And if y'all have got any questions, please again reach out to us. I'll give the Water Master update since Lori is out and about in East Texas right now. So Lori Garris is our new section manager. She came to us from our TERP program, but prior to that, the TCQ's TERP program. But prior to that, she's run an environmental education entity and done lots of work in her PhD program, working with stakeholders anywhere from, farmers at the local level up through higher level federal government officials. So we feel like she brings that wealth of experience to the Water Master programs, where we think it'll be really helpful for us. And she's been extremely busy since she started. Like I said earlier, she has been probably out of the office visiting our Water Masters more than she has been in the office, for sure. It might be more like a 75-25 split that she's done over the last 3 or 4 months since she got here. And that's good. She's been out with most of, all of the Water Masters for sure, but most of the individual deputies in their areas, just making sure that she's put eyes on what they're seeing out in the field and is developing a familiarity with those of you regulated by the Water Master programs. If she's not come to visit yet, you will see her at some point over the next year for sure. But she's transitioned from visiting Water Masters and that type of thing to what we have going on this type of year in our Water Master programs, which is at the section level, Lori is evaluating basins in Texas on a 5-year cycle that don't have Water Masters, to see if there is a driver to put a Water Master in those areas. So this year is the Sabine and Neches River basins and their associated coastal basins. The timeline for those evaluations to wrap up, she'll wrap up the actual meetings. I think she wraps up this week, if not next. And then she will be developing those recommendations for the ED side. And right now they're scheduled to go to agenda at the end of August, those recommendations. Another thing that Lori or the section manager or the Water Masters work on this type of year is our Water Master programs are self-funded. So we assess based on water rights every year. And we develop budgets for the agency in the spring. And so then what that translates into is we're developing, taking those budgets and developing assessments that we'll do for the Water Master programs. And the process with that is we schedule meetings with the Water Master advisory committees. Those are occurring in July this year. And we'll go out and visit them, and we'll go over proposed budgets and associated assessments with those Water Master advisory committees and take any feedback that we get at that time. what I would anticipate, Lori, just transitioning into after we finish up assessments is just more of a normal schedule for the Water Master program. We're real fortunate that we've gotten a lot of water in most places in Texas, which is nice. It'll let her get settled in into the position without being in the middle of a drought, which is a nice break for her. So that's all I have in terms of a Water Master update, and it rounds out our agenda too, except for just to say that our next meeting will target for the fall. And if there's anything folks really want to hear a lot about, without a doubt, we'll be updating y'all on legislative implementation, rulemakings that are going on. We'll be updating y'all on the viewer. We should either be very, very shortly after the launch of phase 1, so we'll have those things to do. We'll be able to let y'all know the results of Water Master evaluations and those types of things. But if there's anything else you'd like to hear about, please let us know. We're happy to bring that. And then we've got some folks here that have joined us in person for the meeting today, and if we've got any questions from the folks here, we're happy to take those either right now where everybody online can hear them, or of course we'll be here after we close out the meeting. Y'all can come up and ask us questions. Any questions from folks listening in, and you're certainly welcome to email any of us and ask us those questions as well. Kelly's raising his hand. I don't know if he's... Yeah, sure.
So formal for a very, very simple question, but I was curious if on the viewer, I think that's going to be a terrific resource. Is there a phase down the road where it might also show pending applications, not just the issued water rights? I know that's something that a lot of our clients are interested in, what's going on in the basin, what's being processed. So both a question and also some feedback, recognizing that might be down the road a while. So.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and to answer your question, Nathan, we haven't thought past phase 2. It's been a pretty big bite to take on the QA/QC of all of our water rights we have in-house. But I think kind of like anything else, we'll kind of be looking at the tool and how it's used and what information and questions folks still have. And certainly seeing, you know, what we can put out there. We like the transparency that the tool provides. We've also put a lot of applications that we receive. All of those that we initially receive are put online. And we like, again, the transparency with that and the information it provides to folks. So we'll just continue to look at those things and see what we can do. Certainly any other suggestions as we go through, we're happy to see. But it's good to hear from you all. We know how we use things, right? And we think we know how y'all use them based on the questions we get. But any feedback you can give us as well is really helpful. It helps us know what you're looking for and what you're needing. Anything else? Okay, I think that's it. Happy summer to everyone, and we'll see those of y'all that we don't see between now and the fall. We'll see you again in the fall. Thanks.